persuasive research paper, which is your final paper 2. So some basics. The word limit is 2000 to 2500 words, uh, excluding cover page, works cited and annotated bibliography, and the format double space 12 point times New Roman APA format. Okay, in the details, two major details. The first one is basically you are through this paper analyzing the field, which is analyzing the controversy on which you wrote your paper. That is the first part of the paper. The second part of the paper is your argument in comparison with arguments of other writers. Now, you might have realized that as far as this first part is concerned, you already have, in a sense, done that part. When you wrote your controversy analysis paper, you already have done an analysis of the field. And that is an important step in writing a paper which is based on research. All right. So as you are learning how to write a research paper or how to write an academic paper, what you should kind of keep in your mind is that while you start writing your paper, of course, you need to have uh, a topic and you need to have uh, a thesis as well. But in addition to that, you need to have an understanding of that particular field with which you are dealing. Okay. In the case of this paper for this class, that field is a controversy related to a topic on which you want to work or on which you have already worked. So the first step in writing a paper, therefore, is to provide an analysis and to make an analysis of the controversy on which you plan to write your paper. It is only then that you can produce your own argument. And you might notice that this way of seeking a truth, or give me a second. Okay, sorry. So now this, this way of having an opinion or having, a point of view about any particular issue is so different uh, from the way usually people will adopt to give an opinion. So generally speaking, we always have, ready-made opinions about all the issues which surround us. However, research doesn't work that way. In research, you cannot have uh, an opinion about an issue unless you study that issue, right? So this course kind of provides you that training where instead of rushing to make a judgment or rushing to give an opinion or a point of view, you basically take some time to study the problem. What is the controversy? What does the people say about this particular topic or this particular controversy? And we read that very seriously. Only then we can be in a position to give our own point of view, right? So this is a very simplistic way to describe the purpose of this paper, right? So coming back to the slide. So the first step, analyzing the field, you have already done that. you mainly have to deal with the second step while writing your paper, which is to produce your argument and compare that with the arguments of other writers. Here is the organization of your paper, the final paper. The first thing the paper should have is a thesis. And this component is common in this paper and controversy analysis paper you already wrote. But the thesis that you will write now will be different from the thesis you wrote previously. Previously, when you wrote your controversy analysis paper, the thesis statement was supposed to be just an indication of the focus of your paper, which controversy you want to study. You are not supposed to take a position on that controversy. However, now when you write your thesis statement, you need to state a clear position that you have about that particular controversy. In the same paragraph where you write your thesis statement, you can also give a brief plan about what you will be writing in the rest of the paper. How will you be supporting your thesis? Uh, what kind of resources you will be using? And what will be the main points you will be discussing? So depending upon the kind of controversy you deal with, you might have different points that you would like to discuss in your paper. You can also call it the introductory paragraph. Okay, so as it happens in the case of an introductory paragraph, you should just tell what the reader should expect in the rest of the paper. Now, after that, we come to the problem. Now, the problem, in fact, is the controversy that you have already written about. Now, give me a second. So in fact, this is a little edited version of the same slide. I just made some additions, so I think this will work better. So problem is the controversy. Now, once you have written the thesis on the top and you have introduced your topic as well, and you have given a plan of your paper too, then you should explain what is the controversy you are dealing with. Remember, you can have a thesis only if you have a problem or controversy. So in thesis statement, you took a side. You took a side for what? You took a side for an issue which is debatable. So what is the debate? What is the controversy? In other words, what is the problem in that particular topic about which people are concerned, or about which people want to argue, or about which people are arguing, right? Now, by problem, the word problem, by that we do not mean that you are going to identify a scientific problem and you are going to kind of provide a solution for that. You know, it's not something like you detect, any disease and you are going to, offer a remedy for that. It's not like that. By problem, we mean a controversy. By problem, we mean a debatable point. Issue. What is the issue, right? So describe that over here. When you describe that, you should already be aware of the fact that in fact you have done this part of your paper. Now, the controversy analysis paper that you wrote, that precisely was an analysis of the problem. That was analysis of the controversy. That had history of the problem and current status of the problem. So over here, that is why I kind of wrote it problem slash controversy. Over here, you can use the material from your controversy. In fact, you can copy paste parts of your controversy analysis paper in this part of the paper. Then you proceed to causes. This is something that you have to reflect over or write. What are the causes behind this problem that you have identified? Why people are having a controversy about that, or why that issue is controversial at all? And then we come to the solutions. By solution, we mean how that controversy, how do you think the controversy can be settled? Of course, the controversy can be settled if one of the point of view is accepted as valid and reasonable and logical. So how will you write the solution? This is how you will write the solution. First state what one group of opponents might say about that particular problem or about that particular controversy, and then state your position. Right now, in the previous paper, you did not state your own position. Over here, you will state your own position. Now, over here, again in this part, you are not going to give any conclusion in problem controversy part. It still remains as it was in your previous paper. It is still an analysis of the controversy, an analysis of the problem. What group A says, what group B says about this problem. But when you proceed to the solution, here you change your tone now. So in a few lines, describe what group A says about that particular opinion. Make sure you state the opinion of the group with which you do not agree. And then in opposition to that opinion, you can give your own opinion, which is your opposing position. Why should you do that? You should do that because you need to support your opinion with arguments and with evidence. That is why you need to once again mention what other opinion holders say and how your opinion is different from their opinion. And then you support your position with credible research, testimony, and evidence. And finally, explain why your position is stronger than your opposition's. Now, in this part of your paper, basically you are analyzing the arguments of your opponent and your own arguments too. So in the previous course, WRCM 101, I'm sure almost all of you have done a topic which is called argument analysis of an argument. Now, of course, that has a specific method. There is a worksheet called the Tolman method worksheet that we use for that. You don't have to use any sheet for this assignment as such. Okay, it's totally up to you how you are going to handle that. But you should write over here what are the weaknesses in the arguments of your opponents. Right now, basically, you are going to give your own opposing position. And even if you give your own opposing position with credible research and evidence, yet remember, Your opponents also had their own arguments. What are you going to do with them? We cannot just uh, set them aside. We cannot just turn a blind eye to them. Rather, as writers, we are supposed to address our opponent's arguments, and we address those arguments by pointing out weaknesses in those arguments. So for example, you might point out that the argument given by opponent A provides an evidence which is not verifiable. Or you might point out that the reason which your opponent provides to support her or his argument, that reason is not valid. So these are a few terms that we use in order to point out weaknesses in anybody's arguments. We point out that the evidence is not sufficient. We can also point out that the reason is not enough. We can point out that the uh, evidence or the citation is not verifiable. Things like that. Okay, so these are three major terms that we use basically. uh, the verifiability of the evidence, and the authenticity of the evidence, and insufficiency of the evidence. These are the three major terms that we often use to provide insufficiency in our opponent's argument. Now in the last part of your paper, you have to explain why your position is stronger than your opponent's position, right? Now, in this whole paper, you might notice that this paper should appear as an independent whole. Even if you are going to use most of your controversy paper in this paper, you're going to copy that as such in this paper, but this final paper should look an independent whole. It should read like an independent paper in its own right. Should have its own thesis, plan for how you are going to write the paper, the points about the main points of the paper, and then an analysis of the controversy you are dealing with. And then, of course, causes, you have to write them anew. You haven't written the causes previously, right? Similarly, you haven't written the solutions previously. This is something you are writing anew. You haven't written them in the past, okay? And then take care of all these points while you write your paper. Now, one last thing, where will that support for your position will come? Which credible research will you quote? Which credible testimony and evidence will you use? You will use the material from the readings that you have done and which are included in your annotated bibliography. So to write this part of the paper, once again, you will have to refer to the same sources and get the information from those resources in order to support your own position. Any questions, students? Students, your questions, please.
Sir, I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
So what is the difference between of this paper and the last one that we wrote?
What is the difference between both the papers?
No, the thesis of both the papers.
The resources you said?
Thesis.
Oh, thesis, right. The first part. Now,
Yeah.
in that thesis, you were not supposed to take a position. Okay. For example, if you wrote your paper on climate change, okay, this is our favorite topic. I use this topic as an example for previous course as well. So you are writing your paper on climate change because you recognized a controversy related to climate change, related to this particular issue of climate change. And the controversy was this, that some scholars argue that climate change was a controversy, was a scientific reality, and some other writers argue that climate change was a myth, right? So you might notice how radically two groups of writers might be different, and might be, having different views about this particular controversy. Now, in the previous paper, you were supposed to describe in the thesis what is the focus of your controversy. So, for example, for a topic like climate change, you might write that this paper analyzes the controversy related to climate change. Or if you want to explain it a little bit more, you might say that some scholars argue that climate change is a myth, and some others argue that climate change is a scientific reality. This paper will analyze this controversy. So that was a straightforward thesis of this kind for the previous paper. For this paper, you have to describe in the thesis your own argument related to this controversy. Okay. So after having read the material on climate change, what what do you think now? Do you believe, after, based upon all that research, do you believe controversy, do you believe that climate change is a myth, or is it a scientific reality? So whatever position you have kind of agreed to, or whatever position you kind of plan for yourself to write your paper on, you should state that position at the top of the paper. So you might say in the first paragraph, the first line, this paper argues that climate change is a verifiable scientific reality. Period. Got it? So this is a thesis statement now for this kind of paper, a very clear position. And then for the rest of the paper, in the rest of the paper, you have to support that thesis. Okay. Of course, not right away. First, you will explain the problem, the controversy part. You will go to the causes. And then over here in the solution part, then you will be offering, you will be supporting the thesis that you mentioned over here. So this position states your opposing position. This position is the same as your thesis. Is your question answered?
Yes, sir. And sir, could you explain the second point as well? Review of main points. Like, do we have to write a full statement or should we write everything that we wrote in the last paper?
Y- Your voice is breaking. I don't.
Uh,
Sorry.
I'm
Can you
asking
write?
about. Okay, I will write.
There's some doubling or something. I don't know. Write in the chat, please. Okay, here are a few questions. Meanwhile, can we use the old bibliography, Irfan? Yes, absolutely. You will use the same bibliography. That is the whole point of having that bibliography. Right now, you are actually playing kind of with the same resources over and over again. Okay. Uh, and we will discuss the deadline. Do we have to mention reference list at the end of the paper? Yes, you have to mention the reference list once again at the end of the paper. Okay. So imsal, uh, you have to provide, you know reference list in addition to the annotated bibliography. So annotated bibliography is not considered to be part of the uh, paper as such, but reference list is required. It found you need reference list. We need reference list. Okay. But the resources in the reference list, uh, can be from annotated bibliography that you have already made. So let's discuss the deadline in the next class. Okay. So these are two different things: reference list and bibliography. So bibliography is uh, the list of resources that you used to write a particular paper. On the other hand, reference list gives a direct indication and traces the resource of any particular citation. So if you are reading somebody's paper and you find a quotation over there and you want to reach the actual source from there that quotation has been taken, you can reach the actual source from the reference list provided at the end of the paper. So the writer will give that indication with the help of either uh, uh, with the help of one of the reference styles, either the endnote style or the author date style. These are two styles. So from, for example, if the writer is using endnote style, then the writer would put a number, maybe one, right after the quotation. You will open the reference list page and look at what is written with one and see, you will find over there the exact source of that particular quotation, the page number of the book, the title of the book, the author of the book, the place of the publication of the book, and the year of the publication of the book, right? So this is what we call reference list. So all the references in that list will be the exact sources from where a particular quotation has been taken. So each quotation in the text of the essay will be connected with one of the references in the reference list. All right. Now, what is bibliography? Bibliography is collectively all the list of all those resources from where you used material. Okay. But your bibliography in no way can help your reader to trace individual quotations. So that is the difference. So you are asking, is the reference list just the bibliography without explanation of resources? Uh, no, that is not the case, you know. So for example, you might have 10 resources in your bibliography, but when you actually write your paper, you might cite only from 4 resources. In that case, you might have just 4 references in the reference list. Okay, so this way reference list will appear to be different from the bibliography. But uh, you probably are asking if each citation in the reference list is written the same way as the bibliographic citation. Oh, okay, your question is answered. Okay. Okay, so number of references for this paper, I would say 4 references uh, in addition to what you already have. So 4 references. I would really like to see if you have used 4 papers or 4 resources to write your arguments. I hope you get this point that mainly in this paper you are writing arguments. Okay, you have written the problem. You know that you have surveyed the problem already. Okay, so for the additional part of the paper, the arguments, use at least 4 resources. Okay, 4 should be just fine. I'll give you this thing in writing as well so that everybody knows. And yes, you have to use APA style. Yes, I deliberately kept the same style. Style, in fact, is not a very big issue. It is very, very, very important. But but uh, you can learn a new style on your own as well, right? uh, so I just don't want to kind of pressurize you with requirement of another different style. So APA should work just fine. So Saira's question is asking about the preview part, the second part. Do we have to write a preview statement or summarize everything that we wrote in the previous paper as a preview? No, this preview is going to be a preview of the complete paper, this paper, which includes your arguments as well. Okay. So in the preview paper, you might say you can begin something like that, that this paper argues with evidence that climate change is a reality. The writer will be using various resources, first to analyze the problem or analyze the controversy. Then the writer will provide the major causes for the controversy, and finally the writer would be proposing solutions to this problem. And the and the, and the writer would end the paper by arguing that climate change is a reality, and those who oppose it, their arguments are not valid. So this is a preview paragraph. It kind of prepares your reader to expect, uh, it just prepares your readers so that they should know what they should expect in the rest of the paper. So this is a preview paragraph. Any other questions? So we'll discuss the deadline in the next class. Till then, you have a homework to do. This is the homework. Any question about the homework? So what is the thesis statement of your final paper? You have to share it with me during the class, each one of you. Yes, you can have just one line, Irfan. But of course, your thesis statement should be a thoughtful thesis statement, okay, uh, based upon the research that you already have done. So Saira is asking, do we have to write a whole new paper, or are we supposed to edit our last one as such that it becomes an argumentative paper? So basically, you are extending your controversy analysis paper into your argumentative paper. So from 1000 to 1500 words, you are extending it to 2000 to 2500 words. That is my answer to this question. So so basically what you already have written, it comes over here, the problem and the controversy. But when you write your final paper, it should appear as one independent whole with proper continuity between all these parts. The problem and controversy part should not appear as cut off from the rest of the essay. There should be a flow in your writing. So after the preview paragraph, then you can write that now this paper will provide an overview of the controversy, and then you can provide the history of the controversy, the status quo of the controversy. and then you can move to write the causes and solution. So basically what new you are writing is everything except problem and controversy. You are writing new thesis, new preview, new causes, new solution. But this paper is based on your previous controversy analysis paper. Yes, so roughly 1000 words more. That's right. Okay.
Sir, can we also use the text we have previously written?
What is it?
Can we reuse the text we have previously written?
No, I didn't get it. Your voice is breaking. Please write in chat. So you have to add 1000 more words to your controversy analysis paper. But please remember, you are not writing controversy analysis paper. Okay, you already have written that. The additional 1000 words should describe your new thesis, a preview of the main points, causes, and solution. Those additional 1000 words are for these parts. Okay, so don't extend, don't add more words to the description and analysis of the controversy. That is not required anymore. Rather,